I want to do a test build. What I mean by a test build is I have a bunch of parts, including a case that I've never opened up. I have some parts that are brand new, like the case. I have things like memory and M2 drive that I've had on my shelf for a while for future upgrades. I have some parts here that are brand new that I have not even opened up yet, like this 16 gig of 3600 megahertz memory. I have an M2 drive, a 1 terabyte M2 drive that I've never tried using yet. It's been in the package ever since I purchased it. You've seen this motherboard before. And this CPU, this is the one that I pulled out of this PC when I upgraded it to a 5900X AMD. This one, it did have in it this 3900X. So now this CPU is an extra as well. So I'm going to put this together along with a case that I have not opened yet. It's not a very high-end case, I'll be totally honest with you. It's one that I paid less than $40 for on sale. I think I got a rebate on top of that. It was from Newegg, and it is the DIYPC BG01. So what I'll do is I'll show the opening of that particular one. Let me show a couple more parts that I have here. This power supply you've seen before. Again, that was one that I pulled out of that same PC when I upgraded it to a 3080 GPU from Gigabyte, which required, at least another 100 watts of power to drive that. I got a couple extra fans I'm going to throw in there. Now I have RGB ones too, but I think I'll start by just putting these in. The case comes with one back fan, but it doesn't come with any front fans. And I'll leave that one back fan in even though it's a DC fan. And I'll add these two to the front so we can get a positive airflow in place within that PC. Finally, this is the graphics card that I'm going to put in here. It is the STRIX 3070 Ti. It's one that I waited online for the day that the 3070 Ti was introduced by NVIDIA. So I did an overnight wait on the line at Micro Center, and I was able to get the STRIX 3070 Ti. I could have gotten another 3080, but I waited all online specifically for this one. I've done a couple of videos about this one, but it's been sitting in a box ever since I did the last video of it. So I'm going to put it into this build, since I need a video card anyway, and I'm going to test it out with the other parts, because this is really sort of an integration test of these various parts that I have here. That's the idea. So I think those are the bulk of the main parts that are going to go into the build. What the case is going to look like. This is not meant to be a review of that case. It's one that's really not that high-end enough for me to even do that, to be honest with you. But I do want to show you what the case looks like and some of the considerations that I had to deal with in deciding on, using that case for this specialized build. The DIYPC. And as I said, this case has not been opened up yet. The box is still sealed. The tape across the top wasn't even broke. So let me sort of put it in my lap here so you can see it as I open it up. Get my little handy dandy little box opener here, aka my Swiss Army knife. And let's open this guy up. I've had this sitting in my basement for a while. As you may have noticed on previous videos that I did, I tend to, if I get a really good deal on a case or a power supply, I tend to go for it. Even though I don't need it immediately, I know eventually I could use it for something. Some of you may have remembered when I put out that poll on the PC that I'm still planning on doing, but it's sort of dependent upon some upgrades first. And that's the PC that I'm going to put together with some of the rather, moderately high-end parts. And then try to see if I can sell it. The graphics card on that one will be my 3060 Ti STRIX. One of the first graphics cards that I got. So let me take this thing out of here. Like I said, this has not been opened yet. I have to turn it upside down completely. Get the box off, right? It's not a glass side. It's not a tempered glass side to it. It's just plastic. As I said, it's not a high-end case at all. It's a rather economical or cheap case that I got. I didn't expect there to be trapped screws, and there's not. Like I said, this case actually was list priced for $40, and they were running a sale. I think I got $10 back in a rebate as well, believe it or not. Let's see what kind of instructions has it got. It's got like a one sheet of instructions here. Not a lot of information. That's what I expected. This is one of those that I got to use a screwdriver to get this off. These are not high-end thumb screws. They're just a screw embedded with a plastic top on them. Again, what you'd expect with a case like this. Solid side panel, plastic front panel. And again, I'm just doing this build, as I said earlier, as a test of a bunch of parts that I have. That's enough to put a computer together. And some of them are new and some of them are been used before, but are still new because they haven't sat inside a computer for any length of time. But I did want to show what we got here. It actually has two fans already in the front. I didn't realize that. Maybe I don't have to put the other fans in at all initially. Now they're all DC, so it's not going to be very efficient. Let me switch to the overhead. So it has two fans in the front. They are low. So those, at least one of them, I'd probably want to move up to the top. But we'll see. You know, I'd rather it be blowing across the CPU and across the cooler, rather than blowing into the PSU shroud, which is what one of them is currently doing. Actually, yeah, these are DC, 3-wire, but it also has a Molex on it. So in case you want to run it without connecting it to the motherboard, you could do that. And it would run obviously at full speed if you did that. And of course, this case has the standard cheap I/O blocks. Once you take these out, you can't put them back again. So it looks like it has one where you can remove it right on the top there. I don't see any, well, maybe I didn't get to it yet. Yeah, it looks like there is something over here. It's got two 5¼ inch bays, and these are all the screws are. Sort of cable tied to this, right? Just disconnecting this to see what we got here. In terms of the cables. What is this Molex powering? I guess that's the fan? No. There's no RGB in the front, is there? No, that's not the fan. These two fans are there, but it's got a separate Molex going to the front panel. Let me see if I can get this thing off. See what it looks like. I gotta get to these fans anyway, so that works out. I'm gonna at least shift one up, if not replace both of them. So what is this Molex going for? There is a strip in here. It looks like there's an RGB strip on both sides. There's a wire running across as well. So they do it with a Molex. I guess we'll find out what color it is. Since the back fan is blue, I would guess that that's blue as well. There's really not a lot of air intake here, as you can see here, so this is not going to be a very cool case. I didn't realize there was RGB in the front here. What do we got here? Looks like we got the standard cast of characters that you would see. We've got the regular, the mic, the headset, or speakers, USB 2.0, two of them, and one USB 3.0. Power on switch, looks like a power on LED, a hard drive LED, and a reset switch. So except for the fact that it's got two USB 2.0s in the front, which is sort of disappointing. It's not as bad as I would have thought it was going to be. Of course, you got a USB 3.0, which that can support two of them. They wind up using it for only one, because there's only one there. Okay, just wanted to find out what that looked like. I will deal with that in a little bit. So I guess we start with the usual suspect here, right? Take the motherboard out. Okay. And I said in the beginning, this is a motherboard that I've shown before in a couple of different videos, and primarily some shorts. So I'll leave the book out. I don't plan on using any of the external 2.5 inch drives. It does have, though, look at this, it has one of these things to make it a little bit easier to put the front panel. I forget what they call that little panel. ASUS is big on it. Some other manufacturers are doing it for a while. I haven't seen it in a while. Okay. I'll close this up for now. The M2, I mean, is there any M2 stuff in here? Yeah. Got the M2 screws and standoffs that are in here. So I'll have to keep those handy as I do this. So let me take the CPU out of its box here. And as I was about to say, the cooler that I'm going to use is the standard AMD Wraith Prism Cooler. And this has been used before, so it's not new. So there's no thermal paste on it. So I already know that. That's why I made sure I had the thermal paste handy as I come in here. And as you can see here, there's no thermal paste on the bottom of this CPU, on the bottom of this cooler. I'll leave this out for now over there, and I'll put the rest of the stuff back in. Then we have the CPU. Notice that even though I was using this CPU before in that PC, I didn't bother using the sticker, so it's still been in its package ever since here. Still a pretty good CPU. 3900X, it's not the 5000 series, but you know, it's got some pretty hefty count of cores as well. So I guess the first thing we'll do is we'll put the CPU in. Let me open up the latch. All right. Make sure that the little gold arrow is in the right position here. There's the gold arrow on this corner here. And it's got to match up with the arrow that's over here. And always, the Ryzen always is going to be oriented that way, so we can just take it and drop it in a socket here like this. I always like to jiggle it a little bit, make sure it is in place. Now, this is something very controversial. I don't press hard, but I make sure it does not rise by putting my finger here and just making sure that the CPU does not rise on me as I close the latch. And I do that because I've had it rise up on me. A brand new CPU, I guess the pins weren't exactly straight, and I did say that, I think, in couple of different videos that I did. I'm going to clean it with isopropyl alcohol, 99%, just to make sure it's clean. 99% is almost pure. I made a little short on putting the CPU in a Ryzen, and I got so many comments that my fingers are going to mess it up. I said, I don't put the cooler on until I clean it anyway. The same thing for this. I'm going to even clean the cooler itself to make sure it's still clean. You know, I don't mess around with that. I want to make sure that there's no residual anything on here. This one was used. You can actually see the marks from where the CPU actually engraved itself a little bit in there. You know what, I may have cleaned it too soon. I wasn't going to put the cooler on right now. A little bit out of order of what I wanted to do, but so I may clean it again. What I really wanted to do at this point was take care of the other things that have to be taken care of with this. So what I'll do now is I'll put the M2 drive in, and I've never opened this up, this M2 cooler, because I never put an M2 drive on this motherboard. It's another reason I wanted to do this test build. There were things that I didn't try yet. And we'll take this. And I will put the extra one over here. Feels like they're captured. There's a protector here. I have to make sure I remove that protector before I put it down. It's already got the little rubber pad here. I know that on the MSI one, they give you those pads separately. So let me open up my M2. It's not the highest end M2. It's got a decent read speed, but not that decent of a write. But that's okay. I bought it as a spare anyway. Just double checking. It should be that one there. Yeah, that's the one. And over here, the same thing. It's going to be this one right here. So I'll put it at an angle. 30 to 40 degrees. Make sure it sinks into the socket. The lands on the M2 sink in. Like that. I did not put the screws on. And the I meant the standoff. Now I like to use, let's see, is this the right one? Yeah, it is. Just barely tightened it. This is a 3/16 wrench. And that's the right thing to do to make sure you get it without taking a pair of pliers and trying to force it. And I'm going to go ahead and put this one over here as well and put the screw in that one. And now I can go ahead and put the M2 back in again. Yeah, the lands have disappeared into the socket, and now I can push it straight down. It's got a little collar on it, so you got to make sure that the PCB board from the M2 fall on that collar. And the same thing, got a magnetic screwdriver, just snug. Okay, now I can go ahead and remove this plastic protector. This is stainless steel, it really is. I was surprised. It's not just aluminum. That's pretty good. Was it this way or this way? Now I'm not sure. Let me look at the box. Which way was it? The line is on the bottom. Okay. So these lines are on the bottom. So it goes in this way. So now we have a heat sink on that one. Okay. Okay. What do we got here? The two outer ones, they're gray. That's where the memory would go if you only have two DIMM chips, which is what I have. Right, let me get it in camera here. So that this gray one and this gray one, you pick the furthest ones away from the CPU and they have to be separated by another socket. Make sure they're all open. Looks like these are locked in place. So let's make sure it matches up. I like to do the one that's closest to the CPU first. And we push down until we hear 2 clicks. Again, we'll put this one in this. Didn't hear a click, but it came up, so it must have clicked. And these have never been tried. The M2 of that drive and this memory has been in the package from the time I got it, so it's never been tested before. Okay, now I'm gonna be very careful to just put enough of this Arctic silver that's needed and no more. So I'll give it a nice little center P. There we go. And then I'll get the cooler on. I actually made a short on doing this too, as I recall. Now we want it to be readable, the nice AMD up here. I would prefer to have that latch on the other side, but I'm not going to take it apart. So what I'll do is make sure this latch has to go up like this. Well, yeah, when I'm locking it in place, it'll go up like that to make it tighter. Right? Yeah, it pulls it up that way. And that way it's lower. Okay, so we want it lower for now. I like to get the far one in first. And again, these little clips here, they go into the braced brackets that are on the motherboard next to the CPU. So I got that one in, and then I'll come down on top. And then on this side here, I got to get this in here on this side. So we got to sort of pull it over and push it down in place. Whoops, I messed up. Okay, that side's on. Can I now get this side on? Okay, let's get this on. There, it's locked in place now on that. Now I just have to take this bracket and bring it up. Whoops, it was locked in place. Even with all these lights, I'm not seeing this right. There we go. There we go, now it's locked in place. I guess when I wiggled it, it came out. Both sides are connected. So now I'll take this and just pull it over. And there it is, locked in place. Okay, so I think do we have everything on this now? I think we do. Let me put this away. Got that. Like I said, this has been used before. It does work. This is RGB. Let me get the cables on now. So this thing here has 2 little ports that are covered with little rubber grommets on this side. And one of them is RGB and one is a USB, as I recall. Yeah, where's the cable at? It's in this other package here. So I want the RGB one. I don't want the... And this is meant to go into like a USB 2.0 connector on the motherboard. Certain motherboards and the applicable software to it, but I'm just going to use the regular RGB. I have these connectors on this board. So I think there's one up here. Yeah, there's one up here. That's an RGB. Yep, 12 volts because there's 4 pins, and I actually see the 12 volts written on the motherboard. I don't know if anybody saw that or not, sorry. That's this one right here. So if you look very carefully, there's 4 pins, but in addition, it actually has 12 volts written on the motherboard for this N pin on this side over here. So that's how I have to arrange it. This is 12 volt RGB, and I got to get this guy into that little grommet hole first though. And I think it's a small one. It's the smallest one of the two. Actually, no, it looks like it's the bigger one. Yeah, it's a bigger one. Yep, because it has 4 pins. The other one only has 3. So that slips right in there until it locks in place. Be careful with these. They pull out very easily. So I will save these little rubber grommets. I like to take them and connect them up with the tape over here. Like that. That's the way I like to do it anyway. Put them onto the little rubber band, little scotch tape that's there. And then we got 2 connectors we got to do. We got the RGB one. You see the little arrow there, right? You can see it or not. Anyway, there's an arrow right here on this side that's pointing down. That's the 12 volts. The motherboard said that that 12 volts was the one all the way to the right. So it's got to go this way. And then we have the regular fan, CPU fan, 4 pin. We got to find the one that belongs to the CPU. There's 2 of them there. It looks like it's CPU fan and AIO pump across the top. And I guess that's a regular case fan there. Let me double check this. That's the option fan, the one below it. So this is the CPU fan, the option fan, and that's the pump if you have a water pump. So the one that we want to plug this into is right here. And I need more light. There we go. I'll put a couple of small cable ties on there so they don't get in the way. I couldn't really update the BIOS on that thing because the BIOS space was too small. Okay, so now it's pretty compact. I have everything the way I want. I had to give you a speaker with this one. Look at that. They give you one of those little speakers. I like to use those when I have them. I have a couple of spares, but I misplaced them. So the last 2 builds I didn't put them on. I like to have the beep, the confirmation beep when you're posting with it. I think that's it for this. Let me put this aside now. I'm going to leave the DC fans on it for now. I'm going to put the motherboard in at first just to make sure that I have all of the studs in the right place. You know, it looks like I don't. Looks like I'm missing 3 of the studs. So they got to be in this little bag here. Of course, they're not black, but it doesn't bother me. No rubber grommets, of course, cheap case, but it has a lot of tie downs here. I'm surprised. So what I'm going to do is put the motherboard in and see which ones of these things I have to pull out. I can guess at it. I probably would guess pretty accurately, but I'd rather not guess. This one does have the I/O shield on the motherboard, so it makes it a little bit easier. This guy's being stubborn. Even with that, I may have to, do I have to pull the fan out? Okay, well, I got the motherboard in there, but I want to take it out because I want to remove those 2 things without the motherboard in there. So I'm going to push these in and wiggle them back and forth until they pop out, and then that's trash. And the second one as well. Take that, wiggle it back and forth. And I do have spares. Do it from there. Let me take this stuff here off. Take this part here off. So now that's out. I don't have to worry about these things scratching the motherboard. So now I can take the motherboard and put it back in here. I don't screw all the way down on the motherboard screws until I have them all in. And once they're in a position, then I will go around and tighten them all down. And there we go. The motherboard is in. Let me take care of the front panel stuff here. So I got the front panel positioned. I'll run these cables back through here. I'll feed this in through the bottom here in the front where I think that's going to go. Let me look at it this way. So I'll start at the end and I'll put the audio in. There we go. Okay, that's good for now. Yeah, the hard disk LED goes in the bottom. Power LED, that's the 2 separate ones, the 2 little separate connectors. Want the positive down, right? These are always a pain. That's why I've made separate videos on this by itself. And right on the other side is the reset, right? And then the power switch. There's no polarity for those, which makes it a little bit easier. Which one is this? That's the power. Give me the reset first. That's in the back. Do the hard one first. The reset. And then the power. There we go. And then we'll put in the USB 3.0. And then we'll put this one into a USB 2.0. Two to choose from. I'll choose the one closest to the 3.0 so I can, if I'm cable managing this, that might make it a little bit easier. Well, it looks like it's in. Kind of snug to get them in there. That's why it's giving me some trouble here. Okay. At this point, it's power supply, I believe, right? That's the one that was in this PC over here behind me before I upgraded to a 3080. As I've said many times, always use the screws that come with the power supply. That way you know they're the right length. They're pretty much all 6-32, non-metric. It looked kind of weird with a white power supply, but I wanted to check this one out anyway to make sure it's okay. Because I do want to use this in an upcoming build. Turn it off, and then we'll get it installed. So what do I need here? I need, this is a fully modular. So obviously I need the ones for the motherboard. Then I need the CPU power. I guess I do need the Molex too because we got that color strip on the front. I do have a need for this. You know what? I may have a problem. There's only 2 PCI. I hate to do it, but I'll have to, that particular video card needs 2 of them. I guess I'll have to follow the pigtail over on one of them. I hate to do that, but that's what I guess I'll have to do temporarily. I'll have to put the pigtail for now. I'm not going to run it under any real load. But obviously for that card, I would need a much more power for it if I'm going to put it under any kind of load. Always remember to put that down. The thing has one of these cheap, I didn't even show this before. I didn't even notice it. It has one of these cheap little filters on the bottom of it that you got to get out of the bends in the case in order to get it off. Piece of garbage. I've been screwing, this is what I'm screwing in the power supply at this point. Sorry. I should have kept you guys up with what I was doing. There we go. It is in. And then the fans will go to the motherboard, even though they got a Molex sitting there as well. Let me get the motherboard one here. That's the motherboard one. And then this would be for the video card. I'm gonna have to disconnect one of these so I get a second connector. I hate doing it, like I said 10 times already, but I gotta do it. Let me connect up the fans to the nearest fan connectors. So now it looks like it's time for the video card. Okay, here comes the graphics card. A Rogue STRIX 3070 Ti. I remember the time when I could only dream about a card like this. Things have sure changed. I'm gonna need a support on this. So that's the connected up to the chassis first. Cheap case again. They put the screws for the IOs outside the case. Let's get this guy connected up. Now I'll just turn it this way. Upside down, I know, but that way I can reach my cables. I'll plug this guy in. Where's my HDMI? It's got a lot of DisplayPort connectors on that card. I know there's at least one HDMI though. There it is, ports. Got my keyboard. Plug this guy in, up in a USB 2.0. Voila, a mouse. Plug it in to the power, turn it on. Let's see what happens here when I press the power button. Power button should be over here somewhere. There we go. Let's see if it gets a screen here. Hey, I see an ASUS screen over here. Let me turn the camera and you'll see what I mean. American Megatrends. It says, new CPU installed. Please enter setup to configure. So I'll hit, was it F1? Yeah. And there we are, we're in the BIOS. I've been in this BIOS before. Remember, we updated it. Got the 3 fans running, DC. Not gonna worry about that right now. But it did post. It actually came up. Let me take a look at the oh, look at that, there it is. There's the color strips. So there's one on each side. There's one over here. And there's one over here. Those are the ones that are being controlled by that one connector that we saw, right? I think that's good enough for now, and I look forward to seeing you in a future stream. Take care.